Okay, I think we'll go ahead and start with reciting the Namatasta in three refuges for those who like to join. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. So welcome friends to this Wednesday evening Sutta study. And this evening we're going to be looking at some short suttas in the Khuddaka Nikaya. Now we've been going over the suttas for, this last year and a half. And most of these suttas have been in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Anguttara Nikaya, and the Sanyutta Nikaya, the three major Nikayas, but there's the fourth Nikaya, which is called Khuddaka Nikaya. And the Dhammapada is one of these books in the Khuddaka Nikaya. So we went over many of the suttas, the short stanzas in the Dhammapada with some of their stories. So that is one book. I think there's 5 books total in the Khuddaka Nikaya. And tonight we're going to look at a sutta from the Udana, which is another one of these smaller sections of the Nikaya. It's a smaller book. And usually these little short suttas from the Udana, actually it's called verses of uplift. So the Udana are these utterances, mostly from the Buddha, that sort of spontaneously arose whenever he was sort of inspired to utter something that was appropriate to whatever event or circumstance that was occurring. And of course, many of the verses of the Dhammapada also originate in that same way. They were spontaneous utterances that the Buddha gave based on certain events, things happening with various monks or lay people, and so on. So this verse comes from, as I hope you are all able to get the attachment that I sent out, comes from chapter 1 and verse 10 of the Udana. And the title of that sutta is the Bahiya Sutta. Now, as I'm going to be explaining as we go along, this sutta is also connected, or this incident with this person named Bahiya is also a verse mentioned in the Dhammapada. And you find that sometimes you will hear a certain verse or version of a story in one sutta, such as the Udana, and then you might hear a slightly different version of the story regarding that same person in another one, as in the Dhammapada. So there's some overlap between these verses that you find in the Udana, also even in the Jataka stories and in the Dhammapada. You find verses that are connected with the same person or same event. Sometimes the verses are different. So this one is like that. So the Bahiya Sutra is quite well known, and it's. But I want to. So Bahiya is the name of a person, and usually in this sutta, it's translated as Bahiya of the bark cloth. So bark cloth is the English translation of the word Daru Charya. And then the Sinhalese, the word Dara means firewood. And so it means one who wears wood. The literally meaning is one who wears wood to hide the private parts. Basically, that's what he was doing. And I'll kind of explain that as we go along. Now, so the famous story that most people hear is attributed to this person who comes up to the Buddha and requests him to give him a teaching in brief. And then the Buddha kind of says, well, now is not the right time. I'm in the middle of the alms round. So it's not the right time for me to stop and explain it to you. And then he keeps on asking the Buddha 2 more times. The Buddha finally says, okay, and gives him a very brief teaching. I'm going to get to it later. And then this monk grasps the meaning of that teaching, attains arahantship, and then goes off and is killed shortly later by a wandering cow. And but the meaning of the verse that he gives, the popular one that most people hear, is only part of the verse that he recites in this Udana. So, but anyway, I just want to give the gist of the sutta now, and then I'm going to go into explain some about the past life of this Bahiya, because it's interesting that in many of the suttas and the stories, that you just hear the Dhammapada verse, but you may hear a very short version of the story, but kind of not the whole picture. And sometimes understanding the whole story behind the particular person can also give some insight, especially into how this particular person came to get their realization in the way that they did. So I'm going to read parts of this story and then kind of explain a little bit. Just going to take a drink of water. So anyway, this Bahiya, it seems that from in the commentaries or in this story, it is said that during the time of a previous Buddha, the Kassapa Buddha, there were 7 monks who heard some teaching of this Kassapa Buddha and then really said, oh, wow, we want to attain enlightenment, and they're really, really, they really wanted to attain enlightenment quickly. So it seems they climbed up the steep face of a mountain to stay in a cave. And they climbed up the mountain by a ladder. And then they kicked the ladder down so that there was no way that they could get out and prevent other people from coming up. So they'd be totally secluded when they started meditating. And it seems that one of them attained enlightenment very quickly, and the other one attained the state of a once returner. And so, but the other 5 didn't attain any levels of, the path or the fruits. And so these, the 2 that attained enlightenment, or the Arhat and the once returner, at least one of them had some psychic power, and they, with their psychic power, they flew out and got alms food and came back, and then we're going to eat this alms food. And the 5 other monks who hadn't achieved anything, they refused to eat. They said, no, that's kind of cheating. We came up here to, to kind of just power out and, try to attain enlightenment before we died of starvation. So those monks died, as the story goes. And so that's a sort of a background of, and this Bahiya was one of those who had died, one of those 5 who died. And a long time, probably many, many years, because this was in the time of the Kassapa Buddha when these monks made that vow. And so then catching up to the current lifetime, according to the story in the Dhammapada, in this Dhammapada Verse 101, for those who want to look that up later, it said that this Bahiya had been reborn as a merchant and used to sail on ships, probably in the Bay of Bengal, maybe between India and Burma, some other countries, and was a trader, but a trader in goods. But the ship hit a storm and sunk. It seems that everybody was drowned, but except for this Bahiya, and he found some wood from the broken ship and was able to cling on to that wood and make it to the shore. And then it said that he took some of that wood and covered his private parts, because during that whole ordeal, the clothes were ripped off his body. So he was sort of naked. So when he came onto the shore, he put this wood around him so that to cover his private parts. And then he went into the village, I guess, and then he sat there, and he must have looked like an ascetic to some people. And these people must have been Buddhists. And so this person put out a bowl, and the people started giving him food. And then, they were thinking he was some great sage, because look, he was wearing these wood garments and looked very ascetic. So they thought he was an arhat. And he began to believe he was an arhat too, but then he started having doubts. And then one of the anagami from the previous lives, one of the 2 monks that had gone to the cave, that once returner had been born in a Mahabrahma realm. And then he knew the thoughts in this Darucharya in this lifetime now. And he came down and talked to this Darucharya, and told him, Darucharya was, had doubts about whether he was really an arahant, because he had doubts. And he asked the Brahman said, yes, you are not an arahant, and you've not even entered the way on the path to become an arahant. And he kind of told it like it was. And this Bahiya felt very bad about that. And then he said, well, who is an arahant? You know, who is an arahant? And he said, well, there is a real arahant living in Savatthi. It was a long ways away, perhaps because this was the seashore and he came onto a seashore. It must have been somewhere maybe around Calcutta, someplace on the east coast of India. And he said it was about 120 leagues, which is about 700 miles, which sounds about maybe right. Anyway, he said there's this Buddha living in Savatthi, meaning the Gautama Buddha. And there you should go and hear the Dhamma from him if you want to enter the path to the arahantship. So this monk, he was humble enough to realize that. He said, yeah, I'm probably not enlightened, and let me do that. And so he had a strong urge, and he said he really went very fast over that long distance, and finally came to the Buddha. And so this is where the story, the popular story begins. So you can see that for one thing, at the time of previous Buddha, this person was already into meditation, but he hadn't attained any distinct stages of enlightenment, it seems. But because of that, he was reborn and was a lay person. We don't know how many times, but then he remembered, that the memory of his acquaintance with the Dhamma and that strong determination that made him go up to that mountain and without any food, saying, I'm going to attain enlightenment even if I don't eat food. No, he didn't attain enlightenment, but anyway, that determination that he had. And now that's coming back to him. That determination to really hear the Dhamma from a really enlightened Buddha. Of course, he heard it from the Kassapa Buddha, but for some reason he couldn't, do it all the way then. So anyway, so the story is that now, so this Bahiya, Darucharya, of the bark cloth, so that's the way it's pronounced, Bahiya Darucharya, of the bark cloth. So he probably traded in those pieces of wood from the shipwreck and got some tree bark, pieces of tree bark, and made himself a little dhoti, a lungi or a dhoti out of tree bark. And so he wore that, and the people thought he was an arhat because he was wearing this kind of thing, and he liked to keep that image up, I guess. But anyway, so he came to Savatthi and asked the monks, where can I find the Buddha? Where can I find the Buddha? I got to see the Buddha. And so the Buddha was on his alms round then in Savatthi. And normally on the alms round, people don't go and interrupt the Buddha and ask him to give a Dhamma teaching. But this Bahiya had some premonition that maybe he's not going to live very long. And so he saw the Buddha on his alms round, and he went up to him, and he, I guess, politely bowed or something like that. And he said, please teach me the Dhamma in brief. It won't take long. Teach me the Dhamma in brief. And then the Buddha said, well, this is not the right time. Why don't you come a little later? And he said, who knows? I mean, you might even die, or I might die before I have the chance, this afternoon to come back and see you. Of course, the Buddha, understanding the karma, he knew he wasn't going to die, probably. The Buddha wasn't going to die, but maybe he understood, this person, may not last that long. So finally he relented and he said, okay. And then he gave this, he told the Buddha this short stanza. And he said, herein, Bahiya, you should train yourself like this. In the seen will be merely what is seen. In the heard will be merely what is heard. In the sensed will be merely what is sensed. and the cognized will be merely what is cognized. In this way, you should train yourself, Bahiya. And then he goes on and he says, because Bahiya for you in the seen is merely what is seen, and with the other senses, when you are not with that, then Bahiya you will not be in that. When Bahiya you are not in that, then you will neither be here nor beyond nor in between the two. And just this is the end of suffering. And so that is what he explained to this Bahiya. And it sounds like maybe a cryptic sentence, but it's really the essence of the insight meditation and the essence of understanding anatta. So when he says, in the seen, there's merely what is seen. That means there's just a visible object arising in consciousness. And the insight is that, don't think that I am seeing this, and don't create an object that you're seeing. In other words, in any sense experience, there's three things. There's the knower, there's the known, and the knowing. And I've, had mentioned this before in some other talks. So in any sense experience, these three factors are there. There's the knower, which is the I, the sense of I am seeing or thinking. And then there's the known, which is the object. I am seeing this object that I either like or dislike. That comes in later. And the knowing is just the simple awareness, but normally we don't see the awareness. So the Buddha is trying to get the Bahiya to observe the awareness, just the seeing awareness, but without allowing the mind to create the object out of it. That means the sanya, the perception, which is the mental image that is created from the initial sensory vibration, the seeing vibration. And also before the sense of I am seeing comes into it. It's a very fine line. It's like, maybe, less than a nanosecond where you have just that pure moment of seeing or hearing or smelling, tasting, touching, or thinking before the mind creates the object and the subject, because the object and the subject are created through because of the sankharas and of course the ignorance that had been previously accumulated. So this is what the Buddha was the import of what the Buddha was telling in this very short instructions, because he knew that this guy already had some kind of meditation experience. And if he could lock into that and focus on that would be enough for his mind to open to the truth, to open up to the emptiness. And so then he, in addition, after saying in the seeing, there's just the seen, with the thinking, there's just the thought, and not I am thinking or I believe this or developing that thought pattern. It's just that momentary moment of consciousness or awareness that precedes the interaction and triggering off of all the reactions. So he says, when there's only the seen and the seeing, then Bahiya, you will not be with that. That means there's no I that's with the seeing. In other words, again, as I just mentioned before, there's usually the sense of I am seeing. and the object seen. So the Buddha is saying, when there's just the seeing by itself, then you will not be that. That means there won't be any idea that I am seeing. And then he says, when you are not with that, then you will not be in that. You know, this is a very interesting logical kind of deduction that the Buddha is trying to get Bahiya to understand. And when Bahiya, you are not in that, you will be neither here nor beyond, nor in between the two. That means there'll be no sense of I that existed in the past, or the sense of I that's going to exist tomorrow, nor in between. There's no I from the past. That means the past is not recreated, the future is not recreated or projected. And even the present moment, in the present moment, the I also is in abeyance. And so when that occurs, then the Buddha said, just this is the end of suffering. And so in our Vipassana meditation, when a person has developed, his mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom to a high degree, has developed the factors of enlightenment, this is the kind of insights that will come. But it usually takes a lot of development and practice for that to occur. But he saw that Bahiya's mind was ready to get it, and so it says, through this brief teaching of the Buddha, the mind of Bahiya of the bark cloth was immediately freed from the taints without grasping. The taints mean the asavas of sensual desire, of the taint of being, the craving for existence. I want to go on existing as a separate person, or and the taint of ignorance. And so that stainless Dharma I arose in Bahiya, and it was strong enough to destroy all of the 10 fetters. And evidently he had attained arahantship. So with this brief instruction, he went away. And then the Buddha continued his alms round in the village with some other monks. And it is said that a cow coming down the road. This cow had a calf. Usually cows are very docile creatures, but if they have a young calf, they're very protective of it. So this cow was coming down the road, and this Bahiya was crossing the road, and she might have thought that this Bahiya was a threat. And evidently it must have had some horns, so it charged this Bahiya. But this Bahiya was already an arahant, and probably the feeling that he's even in a body, he was so euphoric probably from just having attained enlightenment that he probably didn't even feel like he had much even a body, and his mind wasn't creating any fear, oh, a cow is coming down to kill me. He didn't have these kind of thoughts in his mind. So the cow was able to probably pierce the horn pierce the body of Bahiya with the horn, and it is said he died. And then after the alms round, the Buddha was coming back, and they saw the body of this Bahiya and dead. And the Buddha just says, monks, put that body on a litter, like a stretcher, and carry it away and burn it. And they said, make a stupa for it. your companion in the holy life has died. So that was, the Buddha's reaction. He didn't say, "Oh my God, but he has died." He just sort of took it matter of fact. "Oh, you see that body there? He was one of the monks, right? He was one of your fellow monks. Maybe he wasn't actually a bhikkhu. He was still wearing them, but he was a monk in terms of the mind." So anyway, he just said, "Well, here's this dead body here. He was attained enlightenment." He didn't say that right away, but he told them to remove the body and build a stupa for it. Now, in those days, you only built a stupa for a world-turning king or an arahant normally. He's kind of, so not an ordinary person. So the monks were thinking, "Wow, why don't we build a stupa for this guy?" And so later, they asked the Buddha, "You had us make a stupa for this monk. What is his destiny? What is his future birth?" And then the Buddha replied, "Monks, this Bahiya of the bark cloth was a wise person. He practiced according to the Dhamma," at least in those last few minutes or so. "And he did not trouble me by disputing the Dhamma." He didn't say, "Wait a minute, what do you mean this seeing? I mean, I learned something." He just took the words of the Buddha, took that right into his heart, because he had such faith. And so he told the monks this Bahiya had attained the final Nibbana. And then on realizing that significance, then the Buddha utters this next verse, which you don't find in the other stories. So this verse is peculiar to the Udana, which, so this wasn't his instructions to the monk, but this was the inspired utterance that the Buddha uttered when they, carried the body of this monk away, or at least was telling him, "This monk didn't trouble me with Dhamma." He was able to understand the Dhamma very quickly. And so he states this other verse, and this is also kind of a favorite verse of mine too. It has very deep significance. It says, where neither water or earth or fire or air gain a foothold. In that state where there's neither the elements of earth, fire, water, and air, there the gleam of stars does not shine, nor does the sun shed its light. There shines no moon, yet there are no darkness reigns. So there's no sun or moon shining, but yet there's no darkness. That means the light of the inner mind is reigning. When a sage, a Brahmin, has come to know this for himself through his own wisdom, then he is freed from form and the formless, freed from pleasure and pain. So in this statement, he's talking about the four elements, and the four elements is one of the meditation subjects we find in the Kayanupasana, the contemplation of the body, in the Satipatthana Sutta that we've gone over before. So he's talking about these four elements where they don't gain a foothold. So they gain a foothold in the consciousness whenever we start creating forms around these elements. And that's the key aspect about the meditation on the four elements is when you feel something solid in the body, you don't say, "Oh, that's my knees," or "That's the pain in my neck," or something. You simply say the earth element or the earth vibration. It's the way the life force or the cells and molecules kind of exhibit when many millions of cells, coagulate, then they form one of these elements. They either form some solid feature, some earth element feature like bone or flesh, or they become a fluid nature and form tears, urine, sweat, anything of a watery nature, or they become a heat element like what causes fever and digestion and other heat, and then the air element in the body that moves and allows you to have movement. So these four elements are what make up matter. It's very hard to understand for the average person. That's why it's very, very deep. So what we call the objective world is the mind creating objects out of these essentially empty vibrations of those elemental vibrations, which is really, they're just vibrations. They're energy vibrations, because the four elements basically are just a collection of cells and atoms and even electrons. Basically, you break it down into the minutest elements. Even all physical matter is just basically different amounts of electrons and other weird things that we don't even know about. Well, the average person, cannot see. So anyway, from that, they get a footing. So you have the initial experience of seeing something, but then because of sanya, the feeling, the mind gets attracted to the pleasanter feeling, and you start having attraction or aversion. That's the foothold. You're giving the mind a foothold by being attracted or having aversion to whatever is coming through the senses. And then you perceive it. Oh, that's a person, that's a man or a woman or a dog or a cat or food, which is basically a mental creation out of these elemental sensory vibrations. Just the seeing vibration, hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling. Even a thought is just a mental vibration that has no meaning unless we bring in the past and future related to that object and recreating all the stories around it. That's giving these elements a foothold. So the Buddha is saying, where these four elements don't find a foothold, that means in the enlightened awareness, in the unformed awareness, or just that pure, sensory awareness before the mind turns them into objects. Basically that's the experience of emptiness. No thing has become created in the mind yet. And so the mind, once it experiences that, that's tantamount, where the I, the sense of I, has not arisen in the mind at that point of the initial pure seeing awareness. But that happens so fast, the minds of people are so slow that we never really see that. Although in deep meditation, one can eventually train the mind to see it and understand how the eye is an illusion. So that is the essence of what the Buddha was teaching this Bahiya, the teaching in brief, because he thought, he might be able to get it. He's been practicing enough. He's very sincere, and he was totally focused. And just those words of the Buddha went right to the quick. In the seeing, there's only the seeing. It means there's no I that's seeing, and there's nothing seen. There's just seeing, the pure vibrational awareness. And that was enough to awaken his mind, and he attained enlightenment. And so when he was going across the street, because this occurred probably within a 15, 20 minutes or a half an hour after he attained this enlightenment, which would have been a very powerful experience, this guy, his mind was still probably in this state, and he wasn't creating ideas of a cow is coming down the road, or any fear about what the cow is might do to him. That didn't come into his mind. And maybe even when the cow's horn was goading him, through his, wherever it went in, through his stomach or kidneys or lungs, and killed him, he also wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to die now. It's just feeling. There was just a pure sensory vibration of tactile sensation without any thought of me or I or anything else. And that's the way he died. So it's very powerful. And that's why those four elements is a very powerful meditation. Most people don't really teach it in that way, because you have to kind of be ready for that. It's not easy just to develop that, but it's that impersonal viewpoint toward the five aggregates. And the Buddha says that in so many sutras. The meditator should regard these form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness as this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself. This is basically what the Buddha was teaching Bahiya, and he got it, And so that is sort of that story. And so this Bahudaracharya was known amongst the monks as being, and the Buddha as being one of the disciples with the fastest intuitive wisdom. That just and the monks were blown away. They said, wow, all you did was say that to this guy, you just said what is in the scene is seen, what is in hearing is hearing, and he attained enlightenment. I've heard you say that hundreds of times. I'm not enlightened yet. Probably the other monks were thinking like that, what's the matter with me? This monk got it. And so, of course, there's instances in other sutras where, like, Sariputta also attained at least stream winning just by hearing that stanza from, from Kondanya, or Asaji, attained stream winning by just hearing a couple of stanzas, and so did so many other monks. So anyway, so that verse in the Dhammapada, basically now it comes to the Dhammapada verse. So this story is a Dhammapada verse, as I mentioned, number 101 in the overall out of the 454. And it is attributed to this story, but the verse is that better than hearing 100 or 1,000 useless words or verses is the hearing of a single verse that makes the mind calm and induces insight. And so, the Buddha uttered this Dhammapada verse in conjunction with this same incident to illustrate that this Bahudaracharya didn't want a lot of words. The Buddha just uttered this one verse of, in the seen, there's only seeing. In the heard, there's only the hearing. And even in the thinking, there's only thinking, or in the thought, there's only thinking, without the I or without the content of the thinking or the seeing. So just that one verse was enough to awaken this Bahiya's mind. And the Bahiya, he might have heard a lot of other suttas or discourses or teachings of other monks, but they didn't really get to the point. They didn't really go down to the quick, and open up the mind. So that's why this story is quite well known in the suttas. And really, if a person could in their meditation really apply that and and have developed the level of mindfulness and concentration and understanding to let go of the sense of I am doing these things, and that would be enough to attain enlightenment. But again, easier said than done, unfortunately. But if you really put your mind to it, if you focus on that, you may not attain full enlightenment right away, but you definitely will get some insights. So that's how this the Dhammapada Verse 101 and this sutta from the Udana, this from the Bahiya Darucharya, they're connected, and it shows how the Buddha just uttered different verses at different times. They were spontaneous. He didn't sit around and think, "Oh, what kind of verse can I tell these guys?" Or this. No, they were spontaneous. They just arose from the incidences, and so much of the, especially those verses and so on, are like that. Okay, so friends, that's I think that's what I wanted to share with you this evening. That verse, and you can find these on the. Well, I've sent you the attachments, and if you want to find that Dhammapada verse and the full story about the verse 101, the story that's not mentioned in the Udana, you can just Google in. All you got to do is Google in is just Bahiya of the bark cloth story, or no, Dhammapada Verse 101. That's all you got to put, because that's what I did. I got it up quickly. So just Google in Dhammapada Verse 101, and it will go to that, the Dhammapada commentary, and give you the story about the shipwreck and so on. And then you can tie those up to yourself. Okay, so now let's see if there's any questions that might have come up from that in the chat room. So there's one question. So did he attain it so quickly? He had been accumulating since past births. Well, it doesn't say what this Bahiya was doing in the past birth, because in the time of Kassapa Buddha, in the amount of time until this present Gautama Buddha, it could have been many thousands of years, but he said he was reborn in a heavenly realm, and the lifespan there is very long, but at some point he was reborn as a human. But whatever he might have learned from Kassapa Buddha, because he must have learned something, because those 7 monks climbed up a mountain, and they were really bent on attaining enlightenment. And, at least one of them did. The other one attained never returning, but 5 of them didn't. And they might have, had they not starved to death, had they eat the food. They should have just said, okay, eat some food and continue our meditation. But they were stubborn and pig-headed. Said, no, that's cheating. And they died, starved to death before evidently they attained enlightenment. Now they could have attained maybe a stream entry, perhaps. It doesn't say. So, we don't know how many lifetimes that had been going on before this last lifetime of the Bahiya when he was the merchant. So, but that is how the rebirth works. And especially if you're a Sotapanna, had been a Sotapanna, you got 7 lifetimes to achieve enlightenment. And no doubt you would go on accumulating merits, hopefully, which lead you toward enlightenment. So the question, what I take from this is to continue to strive and practice, because you never know when you may hear or read that one passage that may lead to your release. Would that be a correct interpretation? Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes. You never know, and because, we can also hear, you know, Dhamma teachings. You can hear a talk on the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path or the Seven Factors of Enlightenment or the Satipatthana Sutta. People have been reading those and studying those many, 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 many times. But each time you do that, probably you get something new from it because of the intervening accumulated understanding. And maybe you meditated for several months or even a year between your readings of the Satipatthana Sutta. And then you read it again and you say, oh yeah, that's what I missed that the first time. That's what mindfulness of the body means. That's what these four elements mean. So, each time, every time you hear another Dhamma talk, that means, you had some intervening experiences in the meantime, whether they were mundane experiences of suffering or there were insights that you had in your meditation. Then when you hear it again, that's what it means. Yeah, the five aggregates, okay, now I kind of see that a little bit clearly. So yes, these are accumulated. And you never know when it may be enough to pierce through that last veil of clinging to attain entering the stream or any one of the subsequent stages. This next question, can we say that everything is energy, formless and empty? Energy vibrating at different frequencies, creating what we call the elements and therefore forms. Insight allows us to be seen. Yes, you can, but only in, again, in a very deep state of highly developed mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And, people have these kind of experiences, but they don't appreciate it so much. Like, a lot of people, when they gain some concentration, especially with the body, the feeling that their body has kind of dissolved, like the hard edges of the body kind of dissolving, and they can no longer like feel their hands touching together, or their, where I've mentioned many times in the guided meditations, try to let the feeling of the hard edges of the body dissolve and just feel it like energy. At a certain point, that can happen because the feeling of a solid body is a sanya, is a perception recreated in the mind out of these elemental vibrations. So the tactile vibrations of the body, the initial experience is just these vibrating in interaction of the cells and molecules, which is basically just energy. They're electrons, it's electromagnetic energy, invisible. You can't see it. So anything you can't see, you could say, well, it's kind of like energy, right? But anyway, so we know that even physics is telling us everything is just, electrons or protons, neutrons, and stuff we can't even imagine. But for simplicity's sake, we'll say it's energy. It's also awareness. So yeah, everything basically, the mind creates everything out of that. So that's why the insight meditation, that's the meaning of insight meditation. It means seeing deeply inside, getting under the skin and going deep within the mind, not the superficial thoughts, but going deep within, through all the layers of mental conditioning, thought, emotion, and so on, to really get to the nitty gritty. That means that seeing these initial moments of sensory contact. That's why the paticca samuppada, dependent on contact, arises feeling. And then because of the feeling arises the grasping. That's the, you're grasping that. That's the foothold that these four elements are getting in the mind because you're grasping at this sensation. You want to get rid of that itch, or you want to hold that pleasant sensation. And then that triggers all the thoughts about it. Okay. So this is for the afternoon intensive at Low on August 15th at 2 p.m. No, that's not a class that's going to be on Zoom. That is an AI, which means people are just coming here. They're meditating on their own. I don't give any Dhamma talks. There's no guided meditation. It's just these afternoon intensive, abbreviated AI, is a 3-hour period where people can just come and sit quietly. And if they want to sit for 2 or 3 hours without any bell to interrupt them or anything else, they can. And we initiated that kind of a program once or twice a month for people who are ready for that kind of thing. Now, not everyone probably can do that, or the other kind of beginning classes where I do give short introductory talk about meditation, some initial instructions and guided meditation. And we do shorter periods, like just a 30-minute sitting and then standing up and walking like we do on the DOM. So more people are probably would like to come to these because they need that kind of let's say assistance or just that kind of group motivation to keep going. Okay. This last question. Wouldn't a vow in the presence of the Buddha come to fruition without failure? Bahiya made a vow to enlighten in the time of Kassapa. Well, the story doesn't say that he made the vow to become enlightened in front of Kassapa the Buddha. But these monks decided on themselves after hearing perhaps some teaching from this Kashyapa Buddha. It doesn't say that he made the vow in front of the Buddha, like the story of Sumedha that actually made that vow in front of the Dipankara Buddha, where he laid down on the gravel and so on. So, and again, who knows if some people might make the vow, but then, don't follow through it. I don't know. I can't really answer that question. But, eventually he did get enlightened from another Buddha. In the same way with Prince Siddhartha, the ascetic Sumedha made that vow in front of Dipankara Buddha, but many thousands and thousands of years or hundreds of lifetimes later, he came because of that vow. He was a bodhisattva, and finally he took his last birth as the Prince Siddhartha and attained enlightenment under the Gautama, or attained enlightenment, without another Buddha. So, okay, friends, I think we'll end this discussion here now, and then take a few minutes break, come back for a few yoga stretches, and have our meditation. Okay. Okay, friends, so start to stand straight. Relax your arms and hands at the sides. Gently close the eyes. Feel the feet pressing the floor. Start to feel the height and the weight of the body over the feet. Start to feel the outline of the standing body. Then begin some deep, slow breathing. Taking a few seconds to breathe in, holding the air in the lungs, 2 or 3 seconds, returning to the starting point on the out breath. So we combine this breathing with the movement. Just take a few deep, slow breaths like that. Just breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. On the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, stretch the head back, stretch the arms upward, bend back a little bit. On the out-breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of the head. Again, in-breath, palms up, straighten the arms. Stretch the head back, bend back a little more. Feel the sensation. Out breath, touch the top of the head. And the third time, hold that upward stretch longer. Bend back a little more. Feel the sensation. In the out breath, release the fingers, lower the arms back to the sides. Start to feel those bodily sensations. Those bodily sensations are that kind of just energy vibrations that I mentioned. Start to see them as just energy vibrations. All these vibrations in the body, they're just the interaction of cells, molecules, atoms, electrons, interacting, producing friction, producing heat element. Basically, there's just that electromagnetic energy. So if you train your mind to feel that and regard it like that, that's the way you don't allow the earth element to find a footing. Now, on the next in breath, push up on the toes, raise the arms up over the head, stretch upwards, face the hands toward each other, stretch. The out breath, come back down, arms to the side, heels to the floor. Use the breath to help lift up the body, in breath. Stretch. Out. In. Out. relax. Just keep feeling the body, just feeling the vibration. Just think in terms of vibrations, energy vibration. Just remember standing. Standing. It's not me that's standing. It's not my body that's standing. It's just standing. Just sensations in a certain order or position. Okay, next we'll do knee bending. On an in-breath, again, lift up on the toes, lift the arms up level in front for balance. On the out-breath, bend the knees, lower down into the squatting position if you can. On the in-breath, feel the muscles in the legs pushing the body up. Out. In. Out. In. The out breath, relax. Feel the increased heart beating. And just the energy vibration. Just feeling. No particular type of feeling, nobody that feels. Just the pristine, bare awareness. Sensory vibration. Okay, now spread the legs apart about 3 feet. We'll do the twisting from side to side, holding the arms out. We'll breathe in. On the out breath, twist to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body, and then next out breath, go to the left side. In breath, front. Just continue that alternating sides 2 more times. Out breath. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. In. Relax. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel the hands touching the sides. Clothing touching the skin. The head balanced on top. The more the different sensations you can notice, the more sense of energy vibrations all over the body. This one last exercise is the forward and backward bending, keeping the legs apart. The hands touch the front of the legs. Be careful on the back bends. Breathe in. On the in-breath, bend forward. Keep the head up, kind of looking out straight ahead. Let the hands come down to the knees. First time, keep the legs straight. Flatten the spine. In-breath, lift up. Move the hands under the buttocks for support. Let the head go back. The out-breath, gently bend backwards. Keep the eyes open. On the in-breath, carefully lift up. And on the out-breath, again bending forward. Let the hands come below the knees. So keep the head up, legs straight. Feel the stretch in the back of the leg. In-breath. Once again, the back bend. Try to bend back a little more. Be careful. In-breath, lift up. Again, out-breath, forward. This time let the hands come down as far as you can toward the feet. Then hold that position longer. Feel the stretch in the back of the legs. Again, those stretch sensations, that's just simply the cells, the body, vibrating more because of stretch, interacting, it's producing the earth element vibrations. The in-breath lifting up. One last time, the back bend, be careful. Out-breath. In-breath, lift up. And the out-breath, just relax. Just feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating. 4 elemental vibrations: solidity, fluidity, heat and motion. Basically just electromagnetic vibration. Not a me, not an I. Just awareness. Present moment awareness. Okay, now bring the legs together, and that'll be all. go ahead and come back to the seats to get ready for the sitting meditation. Okay, friends, so let's try to get comfortable with your meditation seat. So to align the back of the back and spine in a straight line with the back of the head. Keeping the back erect, but the shoulders relaxed, the head balanced on top, the chin level to the floor, allows for the nervous system, the body's energy to freely flow, to be more easily felt. That's a very important aspect, especially in learning how to feel those 4-element vibrations. Just gently close the eyes. Feel move your attention down to feel where the buttocks press the seat. You start to feel those sensations, that earth vibration of that solid contact, body to the floor. Basically, it's just all those cells and the skin and so on pressed together, producing vibration, basically just energy vibration. And the activated electrons from the pressure. And just mentally feel how the legs are bent underneath, where the feet are crossed or where they press the floor underneath. And those are all just the earth element vibrations, feelings of solidity. something being solid, but in reality they're just electromagnetic energy vibration. Tightly compressed cells and atoms. And let the awareness move up to feel your hands and fingers touching, where they touch your legs or touch the body, touch together. Just feel that lighter kind of sensation of the pulse of blood and the hands of fingers. Feel the outline of the thumbs and fingers where they touch together. Even the hands and fingers are just billions of cells, atoms, electrons pressed tightly together, interacting, producing friction. That's what you actually feel. Calling it your hands is a perception in the mind, is a thought. It's not the bare experience. Don't let the elements find a footing in the memory. And just feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Feel the sensation of the clothing touching the skin of the shoulders or arms, your chest. And those sensations are just the clothing rubbing against the skin, producing vibration, sensation. Now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. And just feel the sensations on your face. There's many little sensations on the face, and the skin stretched over the front of the skull, the forehead, bridge of the nose, the cheek, and the lips, and the chin. It's the mixture, a combination of the earth vibration, of the heat vibration. If you feel inside the mouth, the saliva in the mouth, is the fluid vibration. It's the raw tactical sensation. Now move the attention up to feel the eyes and the sockets, and the eyelids stretched over the eyeballs. Just let the awareness kind of rest behind the eyes, kind of just looking at the eyes with the inner awareness. We're just feeling those elemental vibrations. Those raw sensations of the eyes, the eyelids, the blood pulsing in the eyes, or any eye movement. They're all just energy vibrations. Now, let the awareness kind of open up or expand and try to feel the outline of the sitting body. Feel the head there on top. You feel the shoulders, the arms, the chest, clothing on the skin, the hand, buttocks pressing the seat, knees and the feet. All those different places are just producing different sensations. Which really don't mean anything until you start perceiving them, giving them names or labels, or if they have a painful or pleasant feeling, that attachment, and you remember them, that's giving them a footing. Just try to develop that reflective wisdom, the Chintamaya Panya. You begin some deep, slow breathing to feel that air elemental vibration. Just take a deep, slow breath, holding the air in the lungs 2 or 3 seconds. Feel that air element moving the rib cage and chest that expands and contracts. Just take a few deep, slow breaths like that, just contemplating, feeling the earth vibration and the air vibration, the combination of the air element expanding the rib cage, flesh, chest. Basically, those are just vibrations, tactile sensation. Just cultivate this basic awareness of just the present moment. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Doing this deep breathing helps to activate the cellular vibration, to activate the life force, the circulating blood, electrical energy, generating more sensation. So you become like a scientist sitting in the laboratory, looking through the microscope. This breathing body is the laboratory for the insight meditators. With each out breath, allowing the mind to relax and settle into the middle of the body, just to keep the outline of the whole body in the mind's eye. Just getting under the skin to feel those subtle sensations. When you get tired of the deeper breathing, just let the breathing return to its shorter, uncontrolled rhythm. Just continue to feel the sensations, subtler sensations, expanding, contracting. Again, they're just sensations, clothing rubbing against the skin. Which are just tactile vibration. It's composed of electromagnetic energy. Just turn up the power of the mental microscope. Just try to tune in to the four phases of each breath cycle. Expanding in breath, and a brief pause. Contracting out breath, and the brief pause. Developing concentration on the present moment. Concentration is keeping the mind focused in the breathing body. The mindfulness, the awareness, and notice the various sensations coming and going in the breathing body. This four elemental vibration, just the vibration of cells, atoms, electrons. tightly compressed energy. And watch the mind as it tries to, these energy vibrations, to give them a footing in the mind by calling it, that's my foot, that's my hand, that's my breathing, that's pain. When you think about the body and those objective levels, it's giving the mind a footing in the past and future, to drag back memories, to recreate worries and fears. But in the felt, there's just the feeling. Nobody feeling it, no particular object felt, just feeling. Or if you hear a sound in your room, it's just hearing. Nobody that hears, no object that's heard. Or even if there's thinking, it's just thinking. Nobody that thinks, no particular thing thought about, just thinking. Or if it's desire, it's just desire. No object desire, nobody that desires, just desire, desire. Or fear, fear. Anger, it's nobody angry, nobody to be angry at, just the sensation of anger. Or any other emotion or thought. It's just thinking, thinking, hearing, hearing, feeling, feeling, seeing, seeing. If you find yourself lost in thought, recognize just thinking. Take a deep, slow breath. Bring the mind back into the flow of the present moment, body sensation. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Just moments of feeling, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, thinking, coming and going through the space of awareness. If you cling to any of the five aggregates, you give them a footing in the mind, and they go on to create the world, the past and future, worry, fear, anxiety. Let's try to understand that even on an intellectual plane. Try to observe it occurring in the body-mind process. So what perceptions or thoughts gain a foothold in the mind based on that sound vibration? Sabbi sankara anichati yada panyaya pasati atane bindati dukhi Yesamaggo visuddhya dukkhapatta ca nidukkha bhayapatta ca nibbaya sokapatta ca nisoka Ontu sabbe pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They're only sensory vibrations arising and passing away. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way, may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Now I invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times with on an out breath. Place the hands together at the chest if you like. Take a deep breath. Now place the hands at the edge of the knees. Take one more deep breath, stretching the head back, pulling the hands against the knees to arch the lower spine. And lift the head up level on an in-breath. On the out-breath, press the chin to touch the top of the chest. And on the in-breath, lift the chin up. On the out-breath, relax. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So this brings our evening Dhamma discussion to an end, and hope you can still, keep up your daily meditation practice and try to, reflect on this meaning of the instructions to Bahiya. Whenever you catch your mind, fixing on your eye, fixing on an object, just remind yourself, seeing, just seeing, kind of let go of that, grasping that object as being something. Or if you hear a sound, just hearing, or even your thinking, just thinking. It's a very powerful reflection, and, especially when you practice those M&Ms. Every hour is a good time to practice that too, just as a reminder. Okay?
Thank you, Namo Buddhaya.
Wish you all the best this week, and you're all welcome.
Bhante.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away. Sutta a day keeps delusion away. And Namo Buddhaya, present moment awareness and wisdom is always literally right there beneath your nose if you know how to tune into it. As simple as Bahiya did. There's always that potential of awakening. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.